Hey guys, welcome back to From the Dark Side. I'm your host, Sherry. It's been a busy week in the world of true crime. In California, the Menendez brothers had the resentencing hearing they've been awaiting since October. They are now eligible for parole with their next hearing set for June 13th. Some people are confused because in the hearing they were resentenced to 50 years to life. They've only done 35 years. I say that like it's a short period of time. They've been in prison for 35 years, so don't they have another 15 years to go? Since they were only 18 and 21 at the time of the murders, they now fall under California's youthful offender law, which makes them immediately eligible for parole. Back when they were on trial, the youthful offender law didn't exist. It didn't come around until 2014. We'll find out in just a couple weeks. Meanwhile, across the country in New York, Sean Combs, also known as P. Diddy, is facing trial. Attorney Mark Garagos has been a busy man this week, going back and forth. He's Eric and Lyle's lawyer, but he's also a consultant in the Sean Combs trial. His daughter is a lawyer on Diddy's defense team. Today we've got a solved tragic case out of Laredo, Texas. A young single mom and her 1-year-old son were found deceased in a park on a sunny spring morning, and it won't take long for police to find who did this. For obvious reasons, major trigger warning since we're talking about a small child. This is episode 156, the case of Grizelda Hernandez. We're going back to 2018 when this story begins. A dangerous social media trend had teenagers eating Tide Pods. My son was 18 at the time, and I remember talking to him about it. He was like, "No, don't worry, Mom. My friends and I aren't eating freaking Tide Pods." The Winter Olympics were held in South Korea. Former First Lady Barbara Bush died in her home at 92 years old. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, beating the New England Patriots. And in weird news from 2018, with a little bit of karma, a hunter in Maryland was hospitalized after shooting a goose. The goose, weighing 14 pounds, fell from the sky and landed on his head, sending him to the hospital. This story begins at the Father McNabo Park in Laredo, Texas. This park has a playground, some paved trails to walk or run on, 2 basketball courts, a baseball field, and a big parking lot. These paved running trails are right next to the Rio Grande River. You can stand on the banks of the Rio Grande River and see Mexico is right on the other side. Some spots you can throw a rock and have it land in Mexico. It's very close distance. The stretch of land is more than just a peaceful riverside trail. It's also a well-known crossing point for undocumented immigrants attempting to enter the United States. It's like a hot spot. Because of that, Father McNabo Park is under constant surveillance by the U.S. Border Patrol. Agents in uniforms and white and green trucks are driving loops around the park. They're parked beneath trees, scanning the horizon with binoculars and watching both the river and the parking lot for suspicious activity, like if anyone is crossing the river. They also watch for anyone in their cars waiting in the parking lot to meet undocumented immigrants. If you Google Father McNabo Park in Laredo, Texas, you'll see lots of news articles about Border Patrol agents catching these folks. Anyway, the reviews claim the park is a great family-friendly place to take your kids, but there's always Border Patrol agents in their trucks flying around. Others say it's a place where everyday life and national security intersect in full view. You could be playing on the basketball court with your friends and there's people getting arrested for border crossing right next to you. On April 9th, 2018, it's a nice sunny 75-degree day at McNabo Park in Laredo, Texas. A 28-year-old Border Patrol agent supervisor named Anthony Borjos is making his rounds near the bank of the river when he comes across something startling. He's been doing this job for 9 years, so he's seen his share of all different kinds of things related to smuggling humans, but what he sees now is gruesome. He spots what appears to be the body of a young woman. She's laying on her stomach. She looks like she's in her mid-20s. There's blood splatter all over the pavement, and he's shocked by what he's looking at. But things get worse when he notices an overturned stroller around 30 feet away. Bracing himself for what he's going to find, Anthony makes his way over to the stroller, and next to it in the weeds was the body of a small child around 18 months old. Anthony calls 911. He tells them he's a Border Patrol agent supervisor at McNabo Park, and there's 2 bodies here next to the Rio Grande River. Somebody get here fast. He's seen lots of stuff in his 9 years of Border Patrol, but this one was particularly tragic. Another Border Patrol agent comes over and asks his boss what's going on. He quickly sees what Anthony had found. They wait for emergency services to arrive. Suddenly, this park is swarming with police and medical teams. At first, they assumed that this woman and toddler were migrants crossing the border since they both appeared to be of Mexican descent. But they see they are both dry. Aside from the blood, the woman is wearing clean clothes and clean shoes, so it doesn't look like she had been swimming across the Rio Grande River. Her makeup was done, her hair was done. She had a stroller with her, and you can't get a stroller across the river very easily. They realized this was likely a woman who was just enjoying a walk through the park with her child. The victim is Grizelda Hernandez, who is 27 years old. She is a single mom and has 2 small children. Her youngest is an 18-month-old named Dominic, and he was the child with her that day that she set off to the park. Her older son, who is 6 years old, was with someone else, thank goodness. Grizelda was born in Laredo, Texas, and had lived there her whole life. She was pursuing her degree in nursing and was in her 2nd year as a full-time student. Her older sister was a nurse, and she was following in her footsteps. Who would want to hurt this promising young woman and her small child? Grizelda was found with 27 stab wounds. This seems like a personal crime of passion type of killing. Her body was laying on the trail. Over in the weeds next to the stroller is the body of 18-month-old Dominic. Dominic had 2 stab wounds to the neck. All the law enforcement officers there are shocked and disgusted by what they're looking at. There's blood all over the trail, and it's just a very messy scene. And anytime there's a child victim, it's especially hard. But they have a scene to process, so the whole area is cordoned off with crime scene tape, and they get to work. They saw in the parking lot a white Mercedes-Benz sitting by itself, no other cars around it. They ran the tags, and the car was registered to a woman named Angie Hernandez. Thinking the victim may be Angie, they go to her house and see she is alive and well. They tell her that her car was located in McNabo Park, in the parking lot. She says, "That's my sister Grizelda. She borrowed my car this morning." They wouldn't tell her anything, so she gets in her husband's truck and drives to the park herself and sees her white Mercedes sitting there. And she can see down by the river there is a huge police presence and big tarps that are blocking the public from seeing what's going on. She immediately knows something terrible has happened to her younger sister Grizelda. She tells the officers, "Take me to my nephew Dominic. He's just a toddler and he's probably really scared and traumatized." That's when they had to tell her that Dominic was deceased as well. Can you imagine? According to Angie, a couple weeks prior, her sister Grizelda, who is our victim, texted her and said she was having some car troubles. She asked Angie if she could borrow her Mercedes. She needs to take Dominic to the park. The reason for this was that she was going to meet Dominic's father there. Not a lot of people knew who Dominic's father was, and this would be his first time meeting his son, who is 18 months old. I'll read the highlights from the text messages. Grizelda says, "Hey, I have a huge favor to ask you. Dominic's dad wants us to meet him tomorrow, so I wanted to borrow your car since I am having trouble with the truck. I need it in like an hour." Angie, "Oh, okay. Why and where are you meeting him?" Grizelda says, "So I can borrow it? We're meeting at a public place at a park by Winfield so he can play. I'm freaking out, LOL. Gonna take a shower real quick. I'll text you when I'm done. Angie says, I don't think this is a good idea, but yes, you can borrow it. Why does he want to meet him now after so long? As a side note, Grizelda was in the process of making him have to pay child support for the little boy. Like, she's already filed the papers with the courthouse and the ball is rolling. Grizelda says, I need that money for child support. She says he already accepted that he was going to have to pay. And now he's like, okay, I want to see him. He is my son. I don't know if he feels guilty or what. I'll tell you the whole story later. This was just a part. He's not getting off of paying child support. So on March 25th, 2018, Grizelda brings Dominic to the park where he would meet his dad for the very first time. She left Dominic alone on the bench with his dad for a few minutes so she could walk back to the car and grab some snacks. She overheard him talking to little Dominic about being involved in his life more. Grizelda sees this as sweet, so she's really taking her time walking back to them. She thinks this is a good time for them to form a bond. Within a few minutes, Dominic is hysterically crying, like flailing around, screaming. He's not just throwing a temper tantrum like 18-month-olds do. He's full-on hysterical. Grizelda decides to cut the visit short. She brings Dominic back to her sister's house. Angie is a nurse. She looks him over because something definitely happened to him at the park. Dominic is screaming, owie, owie, over and over again. She sees on his thigh there's a dark spot, like a little drop of blood, almost like a pinprick. You know when you get a vaccine or some kind of needle, a little pinpoint of blood will form? Angie asks Grizelda if Dominic had any vaccines recently, and he hadn't. Because of this, she suspects Dominic was bitten by a spider or some kind of insect while at the park. She tells Grizelda to take him to the emergency room since this could be a poisonous spider. Some text messages go back and forth between Angie and Grizelda. Grizelda is concerned about necrosis, and she said Dominic's father was worried about it too. She asks Angie if Dominic can get necrosis, and Angie responded yes. Angie checks in on Grizelda through text messages later on and asks how he's doing. She says his foot is swollen and his thigh is swollen and hard. No fever, vomiting, and he took his meds. I don't know what his diagnosis from the doctor was, if it was documented as a spider bite or not, but 1 week later, Dominic is barely able to walk. He had gone back to crawling around. Grizelda texted her family on Easter and said, I really thought this Easter he would be running around, but he's not. We're doing an Easter do-over once he's better. Angie says that Dominic went to the park that day, a happy, healthy 18-month-old who loved to run around. Now almost 2 weeks later, he can't walk and has gone back to crawling. He's cranky, his thigh and foot are swollen. What the heck happened at that park? The second meeting between Grizelda, Dominic, and Dominic's father took place around 10 a.m. on April 9th, 2018. Just like last time, Grizelda borrowed her sister Angie's car. This time, they met at McNabo Park. Shortly after this meeting was supposed to take place, Dominic and Grizelda were found deceased by Border Patrol Agent Supervisor Anthony Borjos, who was making his rounds. So, police ask Angie, who was the name of the person that Grizelda was meeting this morning? Who is Dominic's dad? They need to find this guy as soon as possible. Angie said, he's a Border Patrol agent named Anthony Borjos. Yep, you heard that right. The one who, air quotes, found the bodies and called them in, yeah. So, who is Mr. Anthony Borjos? His first name is Ronald, but he goes by his middle name, Anthony. Anthony is 28 years old. He's a well-respected Border Patrol agent who is the supervisor. He is married with 2 sons, ages 3 and 10. His wife is in law enforcement as well, but worked in a different area. Anthony is young, good-looking, lives in a nice home, has a good job. From the surface, he had a great life, but he was not faithful to his wife, apparently. He met Grizelda in 2015 on a dating app, and the two had an affair. Grizelda became pregnant with their son Dominic. Allegedly, Grizelda didn't know he was married. He had told Grizelda that he and his wife were separated and she was living in Florida. Grizelda gets pregnant and he urged her to have an abortion, but she refused. He tells her he doesn't want anything to do with the kid. He said his goodbyes and they were done. Grizelda didn't find out until well after Dominic was born that Anthony was married and living with his family. Also, she was not the only one he was cheating on his wife with. Allegedly, there were a few. Now that Dominic is over a year old, she thinks it's time he finally needs to do his part as a parent. She is struggling with bills and paying for school. She wants him to have to pay child support and be in his son's life. This means that Anthony will have to tell his wife that he had an affair and the woman has a child by him. I don't think he would be able to get away with $1,000 a month or whatever he has to pay and not tell her about it. How is he going to explain where all this money is going every month? Is he going to tell her he has a drug addiction or a gambling problem? He knows that if Grizelda and Dominic were out of the picture, all of this lingering child support that would soon be out in the public would just magically disappear. The lead investigator learns of this connection between the victims and the person who discovered the bodies. He gets on his radio and gets in touch with the police at the scene. You can hear the shock in his voice, almost like he can't believe what he's saying. He says that he learned Grizelda was meeting the child's father at the park this morning. His father is a Border Patrol agent named Anthony Borjos. The guys on the other end of the radio are like, what? They're turning their radios down so Anthony doesn't hear it. He's right here at the scene. He has full access. One person said they saw him walk over and stand over Grizelda's body and just stare at her for a minute. One of the other Border Patrol agents said that Anthony was his supervisor. He says while they were waiting for the Laredo police to arrive on the scene, Anthony walked over to the body of the female and picked her up and looked at her for a moment and then laid her back down. This guy was shocked that Anthony would do something like that. He said he stood there speechless watching him. Anthony is a law enforcement officer. He knows you can't disturb evidence, but he picked her up anyway to get a good look at her. Rule number 1, don't touch the body. Let the coroner or lead detective be the one to do that or authorize someone to do that. Don't touch anything on the scene until it's been photographed and documented. I think if the person is showing signs of life, you can administer CPR, but that's it. So this employee already gets the sense that something's not right. The investigator says over the radio, we need eyes on Anthony right now. Don't let him try to get in his patrol unit and leave. Keep your eyes on him. Don't let him touch anything else at the scene either. So Anthony, being a Border Patrol agent, they know he is armed. They have to get his gun as soon as possible or this could get very ugly very fast. Police officers walk over and casually disarm him. He's like, what are you guys doing? They ask him to get in the back of the police car. He complies with their command, and he's asking all these questions like, what is going on? I'm one of you. Why are you putting me in the car? They tell him that his name matched the person Grizelda was meeting at the park that morning. Anthony says, come on, guys, really? This is embarrassing. I'm in my police uniform, and you're putting me in the back of a police car. He is humiliated and only concerned about his image. He asks them what they're going to do, and they tell him they're going to take him to the police station. Just hang tight for now. Anthony is getting really upset. He is acting completely oblivious. Why is my name getting drug into this? All I did was call it in. He asks if he can take his uniform shirt off. He doesn't want to be paraded in front of cameras wearing his Border Patrol shirt. They allow him to remove it and just wear an undershirt instead. They take him back to the station and 2 detectives begin interviewing him. They ask him if he knows the name of the woman whose body was found. He says, nope, no idea, don't know her. This guy is like talking to a brick wall. He is so far distanced from this murder that he might as well be on a different continent. I'm so glad that Grizelda's sister Angie knew the name of Dominic's father and that he was the person they were meeting that day. This investigation was only about 1 hour long before they had a suspect in custody. It could have drug out for months or possibly years until they found their killer. But back to the police station. So, one interesting thing that was mentioned about this interview on Killer Cases is that Anthony is sitting on one side of the table. The two detectives from the Laredo police are sitting on the other side, firing off questions to Anthony. Both of them have their cell phones sitting on the table next to all the paperwork. You can watch, and every couple of minutes, their cell phones would light up from getting a text message. Each time that happened, it was new evidence being found that was sent to them live from the crime scene. One of the messages was that blood was found on the back of Anthony's truck on the outside of the tailgate. The blood was a match to Dominic. They find his belt that is a part of his uniform. It was hidden in the truck and it had blood splatter on it. When Anthony was first told to go sit in the cop car, they shut him up in there, but there is a camera in the car recording. He's all by himself, and at one point he just says to himself, "Oh, telephono." Almost like a light bulb went off. He just says, "telephono." We know now what he was referring to because Grizelda's phone was found inside the cab of his truck. He just realized that he had forgotten to get rid of her phone. He knows police are going to search his truck and find it, and they did. Something else found in Anthony's government truck was an 18-gauge syringe. The spot on Dominic's thigh was a match to a 18-gauge syringe. We don't know exactly what substance little Dominic was injected with 2 weeks prior at the park when he was with his dad, but whatever it was caused him a tremendous amount of pain, and he spent his last 2 weeks unable to walk and very cranky. Something that would come out later is that at the time there was this major cane eradication going on near the area where the bodies were found. It's an invasive species and park maintenance was in the process of getting rid of it. You can use chemicals or machines. Anyway, at the time, all of the surveillance cameras were removed from that area. Anthony knew this. He may have been one of the ones to remove them. Anthony says he doesn't know who the woman and child are that were found. He says he assumed they were beaten because they crossed the border and didn't have money to pay whoever got them across. Detectives are like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. They tell him that he needs to start telling the truth. It's obvious he not only knew Grizelda, but he had a child with her. He killed her and his own son so that his wife didn't find out. He finally admits that yes, he had an affair with Grizelda. They ask him if his wife knew about the child, and he says that he was awaiting some paternity test results and he wasn't going to tell her until that was finished just in case it wasn't his. Dominic was indeed Anthony's child. Not only did the DNA test confirm this, but if you look at photos, Dominic looks exactly like him. One of the detectives is starting to get really pissed. He tells Anthony he is losing his patience. You need to man up. Tell us what you did. Anthony is still not confessing to anything. He's playing dumb and acting like he didn't know the woman and child were Grizelda and Dominic. He yells back at them, quote, "I didn't do shit and you're making a mistake." But police have all the evidence they need to arrest him and charge him with 2 counts of murder. They can check every box. They've got deception, they have motive, they have evidence. They are approved to proceed with an arrest. Suddenly, Anthony's photo is all over the national news. This is a high-profile case because he is a law enforcement officer, specifically a Border Patrol agent. Plus, there's all this additional drama since he's married. Anthony is a supervisor, but he has a boss too. His big boss, Jason Owens, goes out on the news and gives a press conference. He says criminal action by one of our employees is something that will simply not be tolerated. The actions of this individual, if true, are both apprehensible and inexcusable. Let's not forget that Grizelda also has a 6-year-old son. His little brother and his mother were murdered, and I'm so glad that he wasn't at the park with them that day. Anthony will have his day in court, but it took a long time to get to that point. Even though Anthony was arrested within an hour of the murders, he wouldn't go to trial until 5 years later. According to the Laredo Times, the reason for the delay was because the defense had additional time for mitigating evidence and mental health evaluations. Then 2020 happened and the country was in a full-on pandemic. There was a lot of pretrial motions and requests to have certain testimonies thrown out, but all the ducks are in a row now and the trial can proceed in June 2023. Anthony's trial was televised on Court TV. This isn't an open-close case. Since Anthony is pleading not guilty, this trial takes around a month to conclude. If he would have just went in and pled guilty, it would have spared a lot of time and witnesses. But he does have the right to a fair trial and to defend himself, especially because this murder happened in Texas and he is possibly facing the death penalty. Texas doesn't play around. They issue the death penalty like traffic tickets. I'm exaggerating, but not really. According to deathpenalty.org, Texas has carried out more executions since 1976 than any other state in the U.S. According to KGNS News, one of the first to testify was Grizelda's longtime friend, Adriana. She had been her close friend since middle school. She said Grizelda had recently been saying how money was tight with her going to nursing school. She said even though Anthony wanted nothing to do with his son, she was going to file for child support. Grizelda didn't really know a lot about Anthony, so she asked her to help do some detective work. They found his address and his social media through some Google searches, and in doing so, Grizelda found out Anthony was married with 2 kids. Grizelda was pretty shocked to learn this and told Adriana that in the photos of Anthony with his kids, one of the boys looked a lot like Dominic. As I mentioned, this trial aired on Court TV. The judge actually had to stop everyone for a moment and ask that the media stop zooming in on Anthony's face at the defense table. One of Anthony's co-workers, the one who saw Anthony picking the body up while they were waiting for emergency services, said he saw Anthony dragging his feet at the crime scene when he walked. He thought it was a really strange thing to do and wondered why he was walking like that. From June 27th through July 5th, 2023, the prosecution presented evidence including DNA analysis confirming that Anthony was Dominic's father, surveillance footage tracking his movements on the day of the murders, and testimonies from other law enforcement and forensic experts. Some of these witnesses had to describe the nature of the injuries sustained by Grizelda and little Dominic and the crime scene details. This, of course, was really hard to listen to, especially by their family. Investigators say during their searches they found a letter addressed to Anthony from the state. It was telling him the address of where he should send his child support payments for Dominic. A phone expert also testified that Anthony's cell phone data placed him at the crime scene at the time of death. He says this data cannot be altered. His cell phone was there during that time right next to Grizelda's cell phone data. There's so much hard evidence and circumstantial evidence that it's hard for anyone to believe he's innocent despite his not guilty plea. On July 6, 2023, Anthony was found guilty of 2 counts of capital murder. The reason he was charged with capital murder, which is worse than regular murder, if there is such a thing, is because he met all the criteria. There were multiple victims, and one of those victims was a child under the age of 10. In the state of Texas, this qualifies him for the death penalty. Twice, actually. For 10 days, July 7th through July 17th, this is the penalty phase. Now all of Grizelda's family members and Anthony's family members can speak to the jury and give victim impact statements, or for Anthony, his family can give character statements. They don't want him to get the death penalty. The prosecution is urging the jury to consider the death penalty, while the defense is asking for life without parole. Grizelda's mother, Maria Hernandez, told Anthony, The same way you held Dominic to take away his life, that's the same way I thought your life would be taken away too. And in your Bible, have you already read where it says, "Thou shalt not kill"? I hope that every time you close your eyes, you see Grizelda and Dominic fighting for their lives. I will forever hold Grizelda and Dominic close to my heart where nobody will hurt them ever again. Grizelda's sister Angie told Anthony, "My life, my world has become one filled with sorrow and pain. I will wait for justice for the barbaric, horrific acts of violence that you executed and ended with Grizelda and Dominic's life. Until this judicial process is complete, it continues to be an ongoing, detrimental journey for me." Grizelda's father, Ramiro Hernandez, told him, "I, Ramiro Hernandez, father of Grizelda Hernandez and grandfather of Dominic, will tell you that my life has changed forever. Nothing will ever be the same. Our clock stopped. It's very sad. Our family have a constant reminder of how life was before this nightmare when we lost Grizelda and Dominic. We also lost a piece of our hearts." Meanwhile, Anthony is sitting at the defense table and he's not showing any real emotion. On July 18th, 2023, after deliberating for 9 hours, the jury reached a sentence. Anthony Borjos was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. In 2024, Anthony filed an appeal to the court regarding his conviction, but the district attorney is confident that his guilty verdict will not change no matter what. It's safe to say that Anthony will spend every waking moment in prison until he is an old man. He's only 36 years old today in 2025, so he still has a ways to go. Prison is probably pretty hard for him since most inmates don't do well with men who have killed innocent babies. The case of Grizelda and Dominic Hernandez is a chilling reminder of how deeply betrayal can be, especially when someone sworn to protect instead commits this level of violence. I don't know whatever happened to Anthony's wife and 2 sons. I assume they probably moved out of state and started over. I'm honestly surprised the jury spared Anthony the death penalty by sentencing him to life without parole. For Grizelda's family, no sentence, whether it's death or life, could ever fill the space left behind. Rest in peace to Grizelda and Dominic. I hope for their loved ones, their memories remain a force stronger than the tragedy that took them. My heart is with her family, especially her surviving son. That's it for this week, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care, and much love to you all.